Welcome to another special edition of Bigfoot and the Bunny for the Paranormal UK Radio Network. We've got a great show for you guys, and I know I say that all the time, but well, we really do. This was a really fun one we did with psychic medium Robert Righi, and curious to note, some people had mentioned that they may have heard EVPs and some of the chats that were going on when we live streamed this. And at the end of this recording, and making this for the Paranormal UK Radio Network, I go and cut out, any blank spaces in time. And there's always a few seconds left when the stream is ending after we've said our goodbyes. And right in the last second, there was an EVP. So you can listen for that. It's at the end, and I'm going to put something in there and amplify it and maybe slow it down so you can hear it as well, and tell us what you think. You can find us, of course, on the Facebook group, Paranormal UK Radio Network Fans, and you can find our own page at facebook.com/BigfootandtheBunny, or reach out to us directly through email at bigfootandthebunny@gmail.com. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick, too, is we changed streaming platforms because the show is a live stream when it is first aired. And we may have made mention of it during the show. I cut most of that out. We were talking about it in the front of it, and there was no need to keep it in the podcast, so I deleted that. But if you hear us mention StreamYard or Melon, that's what we're talking about. We moved from Melon to StreamYard in the moments before we went live. So you may hear us mention that. But also, as you're listening to it, listen for EVPs, in particular when Robert is talking about Ted Bundy. Robert was one of the last people to interview Ted Bundy while he was on death row. And he makes mention that audio often does get distorted and things like EVPs crop up when he discusses Ted. Like the spirit of Ted is, still around trying to cause some chaos, which wouldn't really surprise me. But see what you think. And again, I'll make mention of that EVP I just noticed in editing this for you guys at the end of the show. So sit back, relax, enjoy. Thank you. We appreciate your patronage to the Paranormal UK Radio Network and to Bigfoot and the Bunny. Thanks, folks. Welcome to Bigfoot
and the Bunny.
This is a couple's journey into the mysterious,
the unknown, and the paranormal.
I'm your host, Chris Carr.
And I'm your host, Kristen Johnson.
Together we are Bigfoot and the Bunny. Wow, we got a lot to talk about, and we have an amazing guest, and we're going to get right to that.
We couldn't wait.
First off,
wanted to say a huge happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you.
To our really good friend, Anne-Marie Young.
Hey,
yes.
Anne-Marie. We love Anne-Marie Young, and
she's family. She's a wonderful
awesome
soul, and she's funny as hell. And we're basically, like I said, family. So everybody, please wish Anne a happy birthday.
Very happy birthday. That's awesome. We had a blast in Salem.
We did.
About a month ago, I think we were there. Yeah. We had a good time.
Mm-hmm.
We also want to give a big shout out to our friend Ken Allen from the Wizard's Table podcast, through which we actually met our guest tonight. So we thank you, Ken, and just keep kicking ass out there. Ken is going to be on our Dark Horse Paranormal podcast next week, next Thursday, actually. And we're going to get into some really deep and dark territory. We're going to talk about demons and much more. And just want to give a shout out. I believe he has Pat Negri coming on next week. So that should be pretty interesting. He's on Facebook. Look for the Wizard's Table or Ken Allen to find him. I also wanted to give a big shout out to Michelle Freed from butterflyeffectcenter.com. If you're looking to learn how to remote view, if you're into remote viewing, or you want to learn how to do it really, really well, like with the best, you want to go there and talk to her and sign up for classes.
Mm-hmm.
If you are looking for a missing person, a missing object, like a wedding ring, something like that, that's where you want to go. You can also hire her team of remote viewers to help you find your lost possession, object, person, whatever it is. And I mean, you know, she has some big clients here. We're talking like finances. If you're interested in the stock market,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what it's going to do, and you want to get a second opinion, this is a place to go. Butterflyeffectcenter.com for Michelle. And let me see. Sorry, we're a little discombobulated because, you know, obviously we just jumped software. I'm like,
Jump software. My goodness.
Jumped software. Is that even a
Finally.
term? Is that a thing?
Well, it is now. There we go.
It is.
We made it.
It is. I actually heard a pretty funny story this week, and this has nothing to do with the paranormal, but I want to just, you know, talk about something on a little lighter. This is about Kentucky cousins, and apparently there were some charges filed. This was recently. This was a couple weeks ago about this person. Okay, so here's the story. Kentucky cousins, right? I mean, I don't know what we're talking about here, but
Oh man.
they there was a female cousin. She asked her neighbor, who happened to live next door there, and to borrow a sex toy.
Get out.
Yeah, like really for borrow the sex toy.
I have no
but-
idea. So
and well, that's fine, and everything else. And I mean, you know, whatever you want to share with your cousin, that's cool. But he lent her the sex toy, and then I guess after a little while, he went back and wanted it back, and she didn't want to give him. She started bugging out, and apparently she stabbed him.
come on.
So I have to wonder, like how good is this toy, right? Like, how does this happen?
Don't look at me. I
Is
don't
this
know. I
an
don't
only in Kentucky thing? I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
Good Lord.
But yeah.
Oh boy.
She stabbed him and was arrested. He did survive. But yeah. It can happen.
She didn't pull Lorena Bobbitt, did she?
She didn't cut it off,
Okay.
but she did stab him. She didn't want to give it back. So I don't know.
That is the weirdest story
Like
ever.
how good is the thing?
I don't know. Please stop.
How
But
good can it be that you borrow one from your cousin? Which I think just
that's even
a little
gross all the way
strange.
around.
a little strange, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. That's the kind of thing you really share and
No.
And
Why
share
are
with
you
family?
looking at me? I don't do you stop.
Well, what's your opinion on this? You know, I know you didn't know the story before.
I
told it,
didn't. Yes,
but,
no. But oh dear Lord.
I don't know. And,
Don't, the dolphin.
you know,
button
I
is-
wanted to kind of lighten things up just a little bit because we're going to go some places today.
Yeah.
We have a very special guest for you guys, and we're going to touch on subjects that are quite dark and even a little emotional.
Tissues are out.
Tissues are out. We are honored to talk to our guest, who is Robert Righi, about his incredible body of work, from having his first paranormal experience at 4 years old, being a forensic psychologist and criminal profiler for 35 years in the state of Florida, being involved in exorcisms sanctioned by the Catholic Archdiocese of Chicago, to interviewing serial killer Ted Bundy on death row, to being a volunteer, and this is what it gets me, at a hospice for children and helping them cross over, which he at present is doing this. And in fact, he sent us some pictures and stories ahead of time that really kind of got me in the feels, as my daughter says, got me in the feels. Robert has seen it all. He is one of the very few psychic mediums to have a degree in psychology and be a profiler, as well as a clinical social worker. He has found over the many years in the fields of psychology and psychic mediumship that these skills blend well together, you know, which obviously you can imagine, you know, working on criminal cases and being a psychic medium at the same time for many years. This also, he helps people through the grieving process, very, very noble, helping them with their journeys from life to death. And I'm going to bring him on right now. Hello, Robert.
Hello, friend.
Hello. Thank you so very much. I'm sorry that we have gone through this, but with technology, you just never know. It could be technology, it could be the pesky spirits, it could be Ted Bundy, it could be anything. You know what I mean?
We understand.
Yes, I understand it. Sometimes when you talk about Ted, things get a little awry.
Yeah, they do, very much so. But first of all, again, thank you so very much. I appreciate you folks. I watch you folks quite often, so thank you again. Also, I have to have a shout out for Anne, who I don't know, but happy birthday to you, dear. And I hope that God blesses you with many, many more loving, healthy, prosperous years. Also, I have a shout out to Ken Allen, a very good friend of mine, everyone's favorite wizard, really.
He truly is.
He is.
He is a great guy. And love you, Ken. But my journey is quite different. And each of our journeys is our own journey, right? And mine started when I was 4 years old.
Yeah, very early age.
Yes. And I had gotten up, and I'm born and raised in Peoria, Illinois. I am a psychic medium. I do have a master's degree in forensic psychology and clinical social work from the University of Florida. I was a criminal profiler for many, many years. My spirituality is based upon my Roman Catholicism. I do not try to convert anyone to any faith. I don't care what they believe in. They could believe in pine nuts or anything, right? But for me personally, that my spirituality is based on my Roman Catholicism. Mm-hmm. Like Italian and Catholic, and so I kind of have that spiritual thing going on both sides of my family.
Oh, and so you didn't have a choice there. You're Italian and Irish, did you say? Oh, I'm sorry, Catholic.
Catholic. I think
you said Irish as well. So I was like, wow, you were honored in that one.
Yeah.
No, there's no in me, but I do love Irish food. I do. I love cabbage rolls and whatever. And but anyhow, I'm also gay, and and my life has always been transparent. Okay, I came out of the paranormal closet when I was 4 years old, and I will go into that briefly. But then I came out of the gay closet when I was 18, and let me tell you, my friends, it has been a hell of a ride. It really, really is. My life, I am so blessed in so many ways. I really, really am. And so I share my journey with everyone just in case they remain in the paranormal closet and they're afraid to come out, because there's still a lot of bigotry. I know that
Sure.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I said, sure. I understand that you would be facing a lot being Catholic and being gay at the same time.
Right.
It must have been a little hard, especially growing up in the time that you did.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. And that is very true. But going back to my first experiences when I was 4 years old, I had gotten up about 3 o'clock in the morning. And back then, in 1958, I was 4, right? I had no idea what 3 o'clock meant. Now, you know what I mean? Nobody would talk about the things that we talk about now back then, right? But 50 years prior to when I was born, our culture was into seances, reading tea leaves, fortune telling, and those types of things, right? And then in the late 50s and the 60s, things began to change culturally in America. There was the civil rights movement. There were the gay rights movement. There was the ERA. And so everything was changing. Everything in our country was changing rapidly. There was Vatican II for us Catholics. And so everything was changing. And so when I was 4, like I said, I woke up, had to go to the bathroom, and I saw Abraham Lincoln. I was born and raised in Peoria, Illinois. And Abraham Lincoln came to me in a full apparition. And I remember him smiling and nodding at me. I wasn't scared. But later on, I realized that by seeing Abraham Lincoln nod at me, that was validation for what I would be doing later in life. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so after using the bathroom, I knocked on my parents' door. They thought that I was ill. And so they said, "What are you doing up?" And I said, "I had to go pee," being 4 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "I saw Abraham Lincoln." And my father started to laugh, you know. And so my father said, "What did he want?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "He was just nodding his head and smiling at me. That's all." I wasn't scared. So my mom said, "Crawl into bed with us," you know. And so hours later, about 9 o'clock in the morning, my Spanish mother took me to my Italian grandmother, Nona. And we went to this white witch that I would call her, right?
White witch?
A white witch, yeah.
Okay.
A bruja in Italian and Spanish. This looked like she was 10,000 years old. Oh my gosh, she looked like a hag. God forgive me. But anyhow, she was kind of scary to me, you know. But she put her hand on top of my head. I could feel her energy go down and enter my little body. I began to quiver, began to shake. She could also feel my energy leave my body and go into her. Okay? She smiled. She said in Italian to my grandmother that I was quite gifted. I was special. And then she would grab my chubby cheeks like this, and she gave me a kiss on each side. And that was the last time I saw her. You know?
Oh, that's Strega. That is some of the most serious witches that I have come across in witchcraft.
And it, you know, was incredible. But again, I wasn't scared. I thought it was special. And so my mom and my grandmother told me on the way home, do not say anything in school. When you go to school, don't say a word, nothing, right? Mm-hmm. Again, I was old, so I had a couple years to go. But anyhow, being Italian and Spanish, my relatives' spirit, you know, spirituality when it comes to Spanish and Italian, you know, it has been there forever, for years and years and years. And so they understood of my abilities and gifts. And so I could talk to them about it because I was seeing all sorts of things. I would see ghosts, dogs, cats. I would see people just passing by me, the spirits, children, you name it. I was experiencing it. Okay.
Wow.
But again, this was in the 60s. Got to be real careful because during that time, if anyone acted a bit strange or whatever, they could have taken me away to the state hospital. They could have done a lot of things to me, right? Mm-hmm. So anyhow, I had to stop it. And that is why it is very important to me to help these children, in which I will call children of the paranormal, because I know how it is to not be able to talk to my friends about what was going on, right? My parents understood it. But a lot of these children's parents who have reached out to me had no idea what to do or what was going on with their child. They were having difficulty in school. Mm-hmm. A lot of them were loners. Unfortunately, before these parents reached out to me, that two of these children attempted suicide.
Oh.
And that breaks my heart, like it breaks my heart today to think that these children had no one to go to, no one to confide in. Their parents did not understand what was going on. And I understand that. I do. There were two other children who began to self-mutilate themselves.
Oh, geez.
You know, and when these parents reached out to me, they knew they had heard me on other podcasts, mm-hmm. and they wanted help. And so, because I do have my master's degree also, and I'm also licensed in 9 states as a forensic psychologist and clinical social worker.
Wow.
And so they invited me to come to their homes. Now, I'm not the wealthiest person in the world. I'm not. And so a lot of them, paid my way there to visit with them and such like that. And they lived all over the country. In fact, I have 2 very wonderful families that live in Massachusetts. One lives in Vermont. One other lives in the Midwest. Another several live in California and Utah. But anyhow, I went to these families in Massachusetts, and these children were not psychiatrically ill. If they were, I would be the first person to say, we have to take them to the doctor. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so then I tested their abilities. One young lady, her name is Brianna, came from a very wealthy corporate family in Massachusetts. And she had telekinesis.
Wow.
Wow. It's not an easy skill to come by, telekinesis. Yeah. That is the ability to move objects with your mind.
Right.
Change matter.
And also that the dead people's spirits would talk to her. Now, again, some of these children were like tweens, as they say now, or preteens, right? Mm-hmm. So hormonally, they were changing. They had all this energy, right?
Sure.
And their abilities were coming out even more. So when I went to Massachusetts to be with Brianna and her family, I spoke to Brianna, spoke to her parents individually. Brianna was not mentally ill at all. None of the children, like I said, were mentally ill. They had gifts and talents, but they did not know what to do with them and how to pull them in, right?
Other people didn't understand what was going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And they were telling people at school, oh, I see dead people, I see ghosts, and whatever. And people were making fun of them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were bullying them. The schools called in the school psychologist to see what was going on, because that is a red flag, meaning that something was happening in the home. Maybe the kids were being neglected. Maybe they were being abused and such like that, right?
Right.
But these children are not physically ill. And so with Brianna, I went into the room with her parents, and Brianna was in another room. And so I said, Brianna, I want you to move a hairbrush that is in the room with your parents and myself. And right after I said that hairbrush moved right in front of us.
Wow.
It didn't take her. I mean, the minute I opened my mouth and even finished my sentence, that brush was moving,
Yeah.
And he's gifted in so many ways.
And it's an amazing thing to see. Like, it's one thing to talk about telekinesis.
Right.
You actually see it happen, to see something move on its own, just through the power of someone's mind. All rationality goes out the window, and you go, how did that happen?
Right.
I've been privileged to actually witness it myself. And I can tell you, it is kind of blows your mind. You're like, really? Did that really just happen?
It does, because how do they do that? I mean, people will say, because physically we want an answer. We want a physical answer why this is moving, Mm-hmm. But her mind was so strong regarding telekinesis. She can move anything. She could.
Wow.
But it bothered her because she could be walking anywhere and just thinking about seeing something in a store, and it would move. If she thought about a book in school, it came off the shelf.
Oh my goodness.
And so I taught her, instructed her how to wrangle that in.
Mm-hmm.
She's doing beautifully now. She is.
It's great to hear.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Your mentor, you know, that's wonderful.
Right.
I know you do a lot of work now. You work or volunteered at a hospice with children.
Yeah.
And, we were very touched by, you know, some of your stories. And as I mentioned in the introduction, and, you know, thank you. Thank you for your service, because I can think of no greater need in the world than a dying child needing somebody to help them through the process.
Right. And
I might be jumping a little bit on your story, but how did you come to that?
Let me go back just briefly about the children of the paranormal, and then I'll go to the children. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Oh, no, please.
Okay. With the paranormal, there are 15 children that I'm helping and their families. And they wanted to learn. They wanted to learn how to turn it on and off. Their abilities, right?
Yes.
The youngest child was 5 years old and the oldest was 16, right? So we all met together. There were a lot of poor people, poor children, that their parents could not afford to travel where we traveled. And so collectively, we got our money together so they could join us. A lot of times we went to their homes in their area because they didn't have financial means to travel. And so we would go there. And so when I first met everyone individually, and then there was a group, and I brought books with me. We all know that when we were in school, the teacher would say, it is time to open your book, to read, to be math or geography, whatever. It could be a religion book. And so the children knew that when they opened the book, that it was time to do something, right? It was time to read. When it was over, we closed the book, okay, and went on to something else, right? Well, I instructed these children that this is how you're going to turn on and off your abilities. Hold the book in your hand until you can visualize it, okay? When you want to be involved in the spirit world, you open the book. And when you're finished, you close the book to the spirit world. You open the book, visualize it, and you close the book. It was easier for the younger kids to do that than the older ones. The older ones had a hard time with that, but not the younger children. In fact, it was cute that the younger children would say, no, you're not doing it right. And so they were instructing the older kids, so that was cool. But anyhow, these children know now how to turn off and on their abilities.
I love that.
Yes.
Cherokee L. Child says that's a great way to explain it, even for adults. Love it. And I agree. That is cool.
It's really
that's a great visualization. And I love that children can that's easy for them to see. It's a concept. They understand books. Open it, close it. That's cool.
It is. And so now these children are doing beautifully. They were getting D's and F's. They were loners, but their life has now changed and they're doing wonderfully. Everyone has a cell phone now, and so the kids all talk to each other. We Zoom, that type of thing. We use StreamYard to talk together, and parents now can network with each other if they have questions. I'm available 24/7 to all of them. Okay, and we're going to be going to Vermont in the spring. And so I'm looking forward to that.
That's great.
So there's going to be 15 children and their moms and dads. And so we're looking forward to that. We want to go to Burlington, Vermont. That's where I go snow skiing at also during the wintertime. But anyhow, we're going to be meeting in Vermont. And, but anyhow, those children are very special because I know how it is. I know how it is not to be able to talk to your friends about what was going on. And I remember just briefly when I was in the Catholic grade school, I was looking out the window because these spirits were just waving at me and all sorts of things, right? And the nun says, Mr. Righi, what are you looking at? And I had forgotten what my parents said, never say anything, right?
Mhm.
And I said, sister, I see these little kids out there. They're ghosts, and they're waving at me.
Wow.
Well, before I knew it, she slapped me. She slapped me on the face, and I landed on the floor, and I was humiliated.
That's horrible. That's horrifying. I mean, yeah, of course,
You know?
it's mortifying to do something like that in front of everybody. They
Yeah.
shouldn't be slapping you either.
And
no, you should not be slapping him.
No.
No, you shouldn't be laying up on the floor.
You know, back then, during the 50s and 60s, you talk to anybody who was Catholic and who went to a Catholic school, they would tell you horrifying stories about the nuns.
Absolutely.
Sure. About the famous ruler, right? You know, you say something out of line, not to cope.
And all sorts of things. They would make us stand in the corner like most people. But I was kind of fat, right? I'm a fat Italian, Spanish kid, right? There was a nun who really didn't like me. And she made me sit in a garbage can in front of the desk.
No, that's
Oh my God.
terrible.
And because I was heavy, I sunk down into the garbage can. I couldn't get up. She said, okay, Robert, you can get out of the can now, get out of the garbage can, whatever, and get up. I said, sister, I can't. I'm stuck.
Ugh.
She came over and slapped me again because she thought I was joking.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh man,
That's terrible.
that is rough.
Sorry.
And the school system, thank God, is literally changed so much. Even in my time, things were much different. I mean, I did go through the experience of having my mouth washed out with soap. I got spanked bare ass in front of my class when I was in, I think third grade.
Oh my!
Yeah.
And I didn't even go to a Catholic school. This is public schools.
Wow, that's amazing. That's sad. Very sad.
Now that would be like a national news story, but back then, and you can be damn sure I did not tell my parents about it.
Oh, well, anyhow,
like, what did you do?
The nuns told our parents immediately. They called them and told them. But my family understood what I was going through. I must tell everyone that my parents never used any physical discipline with myself or my sisters. None whatsoever. All my father would have to do is point that Italian finger and speak in Italian, and we knew to behave. You know what I mean? So, but anyhow, I came from the most loving family, and I thank God for that. But going back to these children, but these children are doing beautifully now, okay? And like I said, we're going to be going to Vermont in the spring. And these children, in fact, that maybe if things will work out, maybe you guys can come and see us in Vermont if you have the time, because it would really be great. The kids would really love to hear your story. Okay,
God, I love Vermont. We were just up a few weeks ago with our friend Sheik Carroll for an investigation at Wilson Castle, which is in Proctor, Vermont, right in the heart of the Green Mountains, and it was so gorgeous. It's so beautiful.
It is. And so the children of the paranormal are very, very close to me, and they're doing beautifully now. They really, really are. And the children that I am helping in hospice, and I know, folks, I had sent you a picture of Reed. I was holding a little boy. I sent you a picture of that.
Yes, and that's what touched our hearts. We didn't want to, I was going to ask you about sharing, but I'm like, I think in respect to the families, we wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
But,
oh, you can't. That's fine. If you want to put it up now about Reed, that's fine. I have asked them before, and they've only said not to use his last name. So I've never used their last name. But anyhow, they have given me permission. That's why I sent it to you. If you want to put it up there, it's up to you.
Right.
Okay.
We weren't sure. Thank you.
I've got a couple of pictures. Actually, let me share this one real quick. This is you, sir.
Yes.
Yeah,
Now,
in front of the beautiful, this is called the Window to the Universe.
yes. This is in Window Rock, Arizona. It is the seat of the Navajo Nation and part of the Hopi Nation in Arizona. And I have two shaman friends, and they're with me. I'll be with them later tonight. And they asked me, and they know of my volunteer work with the Native Americans, like from January 1st until the third week in November, third week in May. I was in the southern part of New Mexico, and I was volunteering on the Navajo Nation, and I was volunteering in a homeless shelter in soup kitchen. I was working with the Missionaries of Charity, the group that Mother Teresa started. And so I have learned so much. And my friends, Daniel and Matthew, they know of my volunteer work with the Native Americans there. And they asked me if I wanted to go into the window to the universe. I said, sure, because they usually do not allow non-Native Americans to do that.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so I was quite privileged. But let me tell you that when I went inside of there, they said, Robert, close your eyes and open your mind. My friends who were listening to this, I thought I was in there 4 hours. I was only in there for 5 minutes. And it was a slideshow of everything that has happened in that area. I heard people singing. I heard Native Americans chanting. I heard and I smelled smoke from campfires, right? I heard the gunshot of the cavalry shooting at our Native American brothers and sisters, okay? There was nothing, I mean, I heard everything. I sensed everything. It was incredible. I will never forget that experience in my life. Not at all. It was incredible. And then after that, they invited me to a sweat lodge.
Oh, really?
And I've been to 6 different sweat lodges now. And that is also an experience that I will never forget either. But
How long are you in there? How long are you in that sweat lodge?
Yes.
I was in the sweat lodge. Sometimes it's 6 to 9 hours. Sometimes it's 8 to 10 hours. And we also smoke peyote.
We were going to go there.
I was just going to ask you that. Did you do any medicinal?
And what was that like? I mean, I don't think you're talking peyote from the peyote cactus with the Native Americans. We are talking about a spiritual experience. We're not talking about just, hey, I'm going to get high and giggle.
Right.
This is
and going in sauna. This is something very spiritual.
It is very spiritual. And one has to have the mindset that you're not in there to get high. You're there to reach down inside of you, to know who you are, to open yourself up to the universe, open yourself up to our brothers and sisters, and to experience so much. Did I smoke peyote? Yes, I did, because that is part of their religion. They invited me to.
It's their culture.
And I didn't have to, but I wanted to experience everything.
Absolutely.
And I did. That opened my mind. And granted, in the 70s, I did a lot of drugs, because that was the thing to do in the 70s, right? And so I did so. But let me tell you, those drugs that I did in the 70s had nothing compared to what I experienced in the sweat lodge. And it's not that we smoked all night. It wasn't. We just passed the pipe around. And yes, it's a peace pipe, as they say, right? But it was a wonderful experience to open up your mind to a completely different world. Completely different world. And while we're in there, we're very quiet. There were other times when they asked me, what are you experiencing? And so I would tell them what I was experiencing. And it's something that I will never forget. And I will only be here for a couple more weeks, and they have planned for me to go into a sweat lodge, but this time with 50 other of our brother Native Americans. Usually it's just with them and maybe 5 or 6 other people, but this time one even larger. So I'm looking forward to that very much. So.
Did you walk away from the sweat lodge and I should say the peyote experience, really feeling like you grew spiritually? You learned something from that experience?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, I learned that even being a psychic medium, being in that sweat lodge, experiencing what I did, also being in the window of the universe in Window Rock, it has gotten my abilities even stronger. It has opened a new realm in my life within the paranormal with my psychic and mediumship ability.
A literal weapon.
Yes, I thought that I had gotten to the peak, as they say, within my mediumship and being a psychic, but no. They are more heightened now than they ever have been in my life. You know,
that's amazing. That's amazing.
And, you know, and it has regenerized me. I have more energy. I can do a lot more. I love myself more, not in a vain way, not at all. But I love myself. Every time I came out of a sweat lodge, I loved myself even more. You know what I mean? You think that you love yourself, but once you experience the sweat lodge and experience the spirituality and the love and also the forgiveness that you begin to forgive yourself for things that you have allowed people to do, right? It's an incredible experience. Not a religious experience, no, a very spiritual.
Right, that's very interesting too. Let's get to that. Well, there was a quick question here I had up on the screen. Cherokee L. Child asked, do the Navajo children have stronger abilities because of their deep spiritual culture?
Some of them do. Some of them do. I know that later tonight, I'm going to be speaking with 250 Native American folks and their children. They want to know more about my abilities and such like that. So I'll be talking to them. But let me tell you that their children are very gifted. Not all children, but I would say probably 40% are very, very gifted and very, very talented within the paranormal field.
It seems like a high number. That's fantastic.
That's a lot.
Also say that, I can say this, that Daniel's daughter, now I have nothing to do with the Ouija board, right? Nothing at all. Nothing. I know a lot of our, brothers and sisters do, and that's fine. But for me personally, I stay away, right? But Daniel's daughter, she makes her own Native American Ouija board. And it's incredible. It looks totally different.
I was just going to ask, how is that set up? How is that?
And excuse me. Also, it's a Navajo. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There are numbers there, but they use a lot of animals. There'll be like an elk, a caribou, a horse, a sheep, goat, those types of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what they do, that Daniel's son goes out to a tree, and they always ask the tree if they can take some bark or take a limb, right?
Mm-hmm.
He cuts that. He makes it into a board. It's like 9 by 11. Okay. And he then burns. All this is done by hand. And then he what's the word I want to say? He burns all these different images on the board. And they're beautiful. Every board is a bit different. Okay.
I can imagine.
And I asked them, and anyhow, they're giving me one before I leave. And I have suggested to them to think about, and it takes a week to make these, okay? And I have suggested to them to think about selling them online, because most white people, non-Native Americans, I don't think they've ever seen a Navajo, Ouija board before, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
And so each board is blessed and saved, and they do this ritual that they do with each board is incredible.
That's amazing. Now, of course, they wouldn't call them Ouija boards. So they call them spirit boards, or is there another name? But
there is a Navajo word for that, but I can't pronounce. I have trouble with their word completely. You know what I mean? But anyhow, they call it They call it by.
So interesting. I didn't realize that the culture used boards for spirit communications.
Right. And it's different, though. It's different. It's not like when one uses a Ouija board. I've only used a Ouija board once, and I thought it was ridiculous. But I understand that that a lot of practitioners use it, and that's fine. God bless them. But they do it differently. They do not call or summon demons from this board. Okay?
Okay.
This board was made from the earth, made from a tree. Okay? They asked the tree first if they could cut a limb to make a board or whatever. And so they have great reverence for the environment. Okay? And but how they use this board is to protect them from skinwalkers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, anyhow, going back to this just for a second, that I had, like I suggested, they could make money for themselves, okay, because they are poor. They're not wealthy at all. They're not. The tribe is wealthy, and that's because the money stays at the top and never trickles down, okay? But it's just the fact that she could make money for her family by these boards. And I had talked to her father about that, and he's not really wanting to do that because he doesn't want someone to patent it. He doesn't want someone, to have, like some store or whatever, start making their own or a company,
Sure.
Right.
So, but anyhow, I will get a board when I leave, and like I said, I will show it online and stuff. And but they are beautiful. Oh my gosh,
That is interesting. I didn't realize they had that equivalent of a spirit board.
Mm-hmm. They do. But going back to the skinwalkers, just briefly, is that it is when I have been in the mountains and I go horseback riding with them. We have been about 10,000 feet up in the mountains, and it was snowing and a lot of snow. It was beautiful. They will point out skinwalkers to me. They will point them out. And before we go into the forest, and they'll talk about Bigfoot also. Oh my God, they're really into Bigfoot and a lot of other creatures. They really are. But he said, they always say to me first to protect me because I have no Native American blood in me. Okay? Like I said, they've told me that white folks are very susceptible for attachment when they go into a forest that has skinwalkers. But skinwalkers are just not found in the forest. We were in downtown Santa Fe a couple of weeks ago, and Daniel said, Robert, there's a skinwalker over there. And so being intrigued by that, I said, let's go talk to him. He goes, no, you don't want to do that.
What did he look like? How do they know?
How did you perceive that?
Exactly.
Right. It was a regular person walking. I saw him as a human being. But within time, it was like he began to change.
Like shape.
You saw him as a human being. You blinked or looked away, and he was an animal. He was a dog, or he was a cat. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes he wasn't even there. And it's just, but Navajos, as well as other Native Americans, they know a skinwalker 10 miles away. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so they pointed out those types of things to me.
Wow.
So much. They have a great respect for Bigfoot. Oh my God. In Navajo, their word for Bigfoot is YETSO. We would say yeso, but they have a different term, and their language is totally different. But anyhow, they're really into Bigfoot. Right, YETSO, yeah.
FO. Thank you.
And but anyhow, they have a great respect for their brother Bigfoot. They believe they have been here since the beginning of time. Now, some Native Americans believe that is the missing link between them and us. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And because they are smart, they act. What I have seen and observed when it comes to Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, whatever you want to call them, is that they're like most human beings. They're territorial. You know what I mean? Like we are. Okay. They protect their young like we do. You know, they have to go out and they have to forage for food. We go into a grocery store, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Native Americans have great respect for them. Very much so. Great respect. I wish that Daniel and Matthew would come on a podcast, but they choose not to.
No.
Because of their spirituality, you know, and that they choose just to stay away from them.
There's a comment out in the chat that says the mystic cross palmistry marking is the mark of skinwalkers or being able to spirit project as whatever you want. Poltergeist. Does that resonate with you?
I know about poltergeist, but I don't do anything with palms. I don't. You know what I mean? I don't know what. You know what?
Referring to let me see here because this was interesting. Parakeet tribe shamans have palmistry, a simian line, no race or religion of people. It's entirely psychic.
I see. But that makes sense. But I know Daniel and Matthew being shamans, they have never talked about palmistry, you know. And if they were into that, they would have mentioned that to me. But tonight when I see them, I will ask them about that.
A Cherokee asked, as a medium, could you feel the skinwalker energy?
Oh, very much so. Oh, yeah. That's very much so. It maybe not as much until I experienced the sweat lodge. Now that I've experienced several, 6 altogether, my abilities are more heightened, okay? And so I'm more aware of that when I'm just walking by myself, which they don't allow me to walk around very much by myself. They're very, very protective of me, very protective. Daniel and Matthew and their sons and daughters and their families, they're very, very protective of me. I don't go to Santa Fe by myself. I don't go to Albuquerque by myself at all. When I volunteer at the homeless shelters and soup kitchens in those 2 cities, they always go with me. So they're very, very protective of me. And I appreciate that so very, very much. I do. Because they know that since the sweat lodge, that my ability, my gift of being a psychic and my mediumship, they have heightened to a level that I have never experienced before until now. And so I experienced much, much more.
And the effect was like a permanent effect. This wasn't something you went in, you felt good for a few hours.
Right.
Haven't spent all these hours in there sweating. And you came out and you feel like you've just kind of moved up a level.
Oh, very much so. I feel like a new person. I do.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I feel like it's hard to describe in words of how you know what I mean, to talk about it, you know, because language, the word doesn't even come close. I could say awesome, fabulous, off the chain, but it's all.
How do you explain spiritual growth, right? In language, it's really hard to do anyways.
It is very much so. Very much.
Describe it, yes. I have just one question about the skinwalker in the forest. I know you said out of the forest you saw him as a human being. What did they look like to you in the forest? Were they elemental looking? How was that?
In the forest, animals are skinwalkers too. They can be, right? And he will point out like a moose. We saw moose. We see moose all the time, okay? The higher in elevation, we see moose. And he goes, Robert, look at that and tell me what you see. And he said, I said, it's a moose. He goes, no, Robert, that's a skinwalker. And about in 2 seconds, and then just seconds later, he goes, Robert, and we were kind of far from him, right? This moose. And he said, Robert, this moose, who you think is a moose, is going to turn around and look at you. And let me tell you, my friend, that moose turned around and looked at me. In fact, I will send you a picture of that. That was incredible.
Wow.
He said, that is a skinwalker. That is a skinwalker. And when I saw this moose turn around, it sent chills all over me. You know what I mean? You know?
I do.
Then I looked the other way, and that moose and the skinwalker was gone. Disappeared.
And from your perception and their perception, this is the same creature as it shapeshifts, and it's not really just an acknowledgement of consciousness moving from one creature to another. You're seeing one single creature go, or they are from moose to person to squirrel,
right, or to a bird, to a lot of, or flipper.
So
and it's very true.
Yeah, I'm concerned about this because I think about, we talk about panpsychism a lot, which is this philosophy that everything in the world can kind of hold a consciousness, because we're all kind of made of the same matter, right? So it must be, permeable to whatever consciousness actually is. And it makes me wonder if, when you look at a psychic impression of something, are you tracking the consciousness move from, say a log or to, a dolphin or whatever it is, or a moose? Are you seeing the consciousness move and that's what's causing the shape shifting, or is the actual creature biologically changing?
Right. Sometimes in my mind, psychically, I will see something else that I'm not visually seeing, if that makes sense.
It does.
Okay. Sometimes that happens because it is so overpowering to me physically, like it is probably to a lot of white folks or non-Native Americans, right? That you may be thinking that you are looking at a moose, but really you're looking at something else. You know what I mean? And can you read to me what Ken just put? I can't read that.
Yeah, let me put that back up there. Skinwalkers, Ken Allen's from the Wizard's Table podcast says, Skinwalkers, no joke, believe it. I had to deal with them before here among the Southeast Woodland tribes. My people on my father's side is Mystery Creek Native American. We have a powerful medicine to banish these things. An hour of the Skinwalker is so far no joke, baby. Many Skinwalkers are witches in Marvel tradition who do genius acts to acquire this power. And shape-shifting, he's referencing that.
And is, hold on, let me ignore this. And I'm learning so much every day when I'm with Daniel and Matthew about shape-shifting and about skinwalkers and about Bigfoot and all these other creatures just not live in the forest, but also are walking the streets. They also believe in aliens. They also believe in UFOs, and so within the realm of possibility, anything's a possibility. I believe in UFOs. Anything is a possibility. I know that when I was in Arizona, I went to Sedona in Prescott area, right? Red Rock country there, right? The Native Americans believe that there is a crystal that has tipped over on its side, right? And all this energy is oozing out of this huge crystal. Okay? When I went back to Phoenix, and by the time I got home and went in, showered and everything. And when I got back, I decided to go to the hamburger joint down the road, Whataburger or something. So I hopped in my vehicle and I went there. When I left, I did not go home. I found myself in a different area of Phoenix that I had never seen before. I lost 1 hour of time.
Oh, it's my fear. I'm always asking Chris that.
You know?
Yeah, you lose an hour. Oh,
so God. Associated with alien abduction phenomena. Yeah.
Yes, and I believe, like I said, I believe in UFOs. Anything's possible. But after I experienced that, and it was weird because that Phoenix, I know Phoenix like the back of my hand, right? But it's just the fact that losing 1 hour of time, someone had bumped my car that brought me back to reality or whatever, right? Looked around and I said, how in the hell did I get here?
Oh.
I did not recognize that area of Phoenix at all. And my brothers and sisters who were listening to this, I could not find that place again. I couldn't. It was like I was in another dimension. It was bizarre. It was creepy to me.
Oh, yes. You can imagine.
You know? And so if I was abducted, maybe I was. Maybe I was. But obviously they didn't want me again because I've never felt that way before. So maybe they're not into gay guys. I don't know. But anyhow, that was one experience. And let me tell you, my friend, this is the first time that I've talked about it. This is the first time that I have revealed this. There's so many things that I have revealed, but I think it's important. I think it's important to have our brothers and sisters know that, yes, I know what it is to lose an owl. Okay? I do. And it's creepy. It's settling, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked to a lot of abductee, survivors, and time lapse is such a familiar concept that comes back and forth. And there's something just about being in that trance-like state too. Then you can just slip in, and it's kind of like, it reminds me of if you're out there and you commute to work, or you're going on a long drive and your brain goes on autopilot, and, before you know it, the 2 hours have passed. Now you got there and you don't remember driving, but it's even greater. You don't remember what happened. At least you knew you were driving, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. And the strange thing also was, what happened to the hamburger? I don't know what happened to my hamburger. I had ordered
something to eat.
Yeah, I had ordered a hamburger and Coke. They were not in my car. Wow. Not at all. Maybe the aliens were hungry. Hell, I don't know. But somebody was, because they were not in my vehicle at all, So that was my only experience with that. And I am blessed by that experience. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Now I can relate when people say they have lost an hour in time or 2 hours in time and such like that, how that feels, because it is very unsettling that you don't know how you got to a certain place.
It has to be a certain vulnerability with that too, like you're wondering what happened,
And then to go back the next day, trying to find that place, I couldn't find it. Not at all. I have no idea to this day where it was at, where it's at. I don't, It
might have been like a different dimension at that point.
See, that's what I'm thinking. But it took me a long time. It took me a long time to get back to my house. It really did, because I had no idea where I was. I had no idea. It was an area that I didn't know, but I just felt and I sensed I needed to go north. I felt like I was south, and I went north, and eventually I got to an area that I recognized. But prior to that, it was like being out in the damn desert. It was wild. Wow. And I tried to find it again and never could. So I think that I was supposed to experience. And I did, So now I know what people go through when they say they have lost an hour or lost a day in time. I know how that is.
Wow.
That's fantastic. So you had these experiences. They started as a child. I think you were 4 years old, and you mentioned. Do you feel like you're communicating with spirits themselves that are around you? You're a medium. I'm assuming it. Do you see them? Like, what is the psychic experience like, and how did that begin to you?
The psychic part of me sees puzzles. Okay? Like, I know that both of you know Chris and Kristen. Kristen is a woman, and so her name, and I see blocks. You know, little kids' blocks with alphabets on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, ma'am, I see you. You have lace on your block. You have a K. I know by the lace that you're a female, and I see you also, right? I know that you're alive because the block is standing upright. Okay? Chris is a male. He doesn't have lace on his block at all. He's alive. If both of you were deceased, the block would be laying on its side. Okay? And that's how I know when a person who's coming to me is alive or the person is passed. Okay? Mm-hmm. And along with that, I see pieces of puzzles. I have to put these puzzle pieces together. Okay? And you know, my brothers and sisters, that some things in life are so obvious that we don't see them, right? And that's when my angels, a little girl named Angelina, which is a completely different story too. If it wasn't for Angelina, I would not be here today talking with you folks.
Oh, wow.
She will pat me on the head. She only lived 4 hours, and then she actually happened. And she pats me on the head, and she'll stroke my face. Sometimes she'll tug at my socks, right? When I can't get it, she giggles in my ear. And I have learned over the years that she is saying, Robert, are you that damn dumb? You can't understand it? It's right in front of your face, for God's sake.
No.
And then it comes into play. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Like and the pieces.
Right. So I see pieces of this puzzle that I have to put together. Sometimes it's more difficult than others. But I also know that since the sweat lodge, that I've been to several, like I said, and many, that is heightened also. You know, that I can see things more clearly now than I ever before.
Now, do they appear as people, or do you just get a sense that they are there and you see, I'll say, symbiology coming at you, references, things that your mind can put together that identifies what that is? Like you mentioned, standing up and being on the side. So is it like a rush of symbols, letters, things like that?
It is. And it's symbols and letters and stuff like that has to do with a specific person. Okay? So I see all this cryptic things, right? And some of it can be numbers, can be letters, it can be all sorts of things, right? And so we have to put these pieces of puzzle together. And my mediumship part, and then this puzzle has to do with someone, right? Okay? And then my mediumship then picks up on a person. I'm supposed to see this puzzle. I need to put it together. I'm feeling this. I'm sensing that. And then sometimes audibly with my ear, I will hear that person. Okay? I will hear that person. Or I will get more of a sense of that person, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
And like for you, Kristen, I would like to do a reading, but I must tell my brothers and sisters that when I do a reading, and I won't do yours, Kristen, in the air, but it's just a fact that I believe in confidentiality. And if I do a public reading on someone, or if I'm in a public event, I am very general. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty. I am not going to expose what I am hearing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You know, so I would never do that. I would never do that. We're just having this conversation earlier in the week on our other show with the psychic, our friend Chris Garcia, about like what happens when you get hit with this idea, or like maybe you see somebody's timeline expiring and like you get the sense this person does not have much longer on the planet. Do you tell them? How do you express that? And like what a heavy weight that must feel like. Right. And I don't.
Not that Christine's dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. This is a friend of mine. If I get any sense like that, I ignore it. I'm not going to say, oh, well, you're going to die in 24 hours or 72 or whatever. I'm not going to be pigeonholed like that. You know what I mean? You know, and things can change. We can change our own destiny. If, like, perfect example, if you folks are in a hurry and you have to be someplace, and all at once you get into the vehicle and the road that you're going to take, there's a detour now. And it's going to take you maybe 5 miles or 10 miles out of the way, right? What I see that you're supposed to be on that road, this detour, because that is possibly keeping you from being in an accident.
Exactly. We were actually just had that happen to us a couple of weekends ago when we went to what is the Tavern on the Main, and we had a detour. And I said to Chris, I said to him, I for some reason I feel we need to take this detour because that could happen. We might be in an accident, so let's just go for it.
Exactly.
Right.
Like,
exactly. Right.
It seems like the future is malleable, and we don't live in total predeterminism, but we do to some degree. Like there are certain things, events, and are going to happen. Some big events, history isn't necessarily going to change, but your personal history can.
Right. Oh,
and the environment's going to do, but you can change your decisions, your free will.
Very much so. I believe everything happens for a reason. We may not know that reason at very moment. In time, we will. Okay. I also believe that God puts us or God or the universe, whatever you want to say, puts us where we need to be at any given time for a specific reason. I truly believe that. I don't believe in coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe in luck. None of that whatsoever. You know? And so, like today's podcast, for some reason I couldn't get on. There's a reason why. You know what I mean? But everything worked out. Everything. You know? We took some
StreamYard.
And we took
needed some kick in the ass to do that, apparently. Yeah. So that
happens for a specific reason.
Absolutely.
But just being here in this wonderful, beautiful New Mexico, just 2 hours from where I'm at, closer, like when you get closer to Albuquerque, it's all desert and mountain. But where I'm at, it's very green, very mountainous, beautiful. It is beautiful. And I love being here. I've experienced so much. And I will be here until the 19th, and then I'm going to go back to Illinois. But going back to these children, if I may, to that little boy named Reed.
Yes, please.
I sent you his picture. He came down with a very, very, very rare cancerous brain tumor. And his family's not wealthy. They were going to have an event for him so they can make money, give money to the family to buy gas and those types of things, to take him back to Children's Hospital. I think he was going to Shriners for a while, and then they transferred him to St. Jude in Memphis. And in Peoria, Illinois, there's a St. Jude affiliate, okay? And that's Reed. This picture, my brothers and sisters, this picture was taken 10 minutes before he passed. It was with this beautiful, precious angel.
He looks like an angel.
He does.
Yeah. And this angel is with me every day. And he assists these children in crossing over also. In this little deed. I am so blessed. And so they had sold tickets. Only like 100 tickets for this event. And when someone reached out to me and said, Robert, they need help selling more tickets. I called them and said, this is who I am and this is what I do. And so they added me to the list of things and such. And and it's not all about me. It's not all about me at all whatsoever. Again, I believe that God put us where we need to be at any given time. And I was supposed to help this child and help this family. And in no time, we sold an extra 300 tickets.
Wow.
And it was a full night. They sold food and stuff like that. And like I said, a lot of money was raised for this family. And then the first picture that I sent you is me holding Reed. And then a month later, and then I was with him when he passed. And just telling people of my experiences. And again, it's not all about me at all. I believe the God, the universe, whoever wanted me to help this family. They wanted me to be with this family and to be with Reed in his last moments of his life to help him cross over. And this little boy, just full of joy. Mm-hmm. And this other picture that I sent you of me holding him, that he was very comfortable with me, very comfortable. And so we kind of like walked the room, and he would give me a kiss, and he would give me a hug. And that really surprised his family, because usually he would be very shy to strangers. Mm-hmm. But we had that connection. And I remember that when I said after the and he was not at the event. He made an appearance so people could see him, right, and talk to him. But he was getting him a kiss, and he needed to be back home. And so he only stayed an hour, and then his sister took him home. But just being with his child and being part of this event, that also changed my life too. And this little boy is so precious. And I remember being with him, and like I said, that picture of him waving. And the giraffe he was holding, I gave him that giraffe. Mm-hmm. And like I said, 10 minutes later,
I think you gave him a bigger gift, Robert.
I was with him and with his family, and his grandparents were there. And they were saying, I said, love on him, kiss him. And so they were doing that, and he reached out to me, and I gave him a kiss on his forehead. And I told him, you will always be with me forever, for eternity. And this little boy is. And so he's with me right now. This little boy, I can't say enough words to describe about this precious little boy. Hi, Michelle. Michelle is from Ohio. Michelle's wonderful. But anyhow, that was Reed.
I said we would go into some emotional places today, and I meant that, knowing about Reed and knowing about some of the other things that you have dealt with in your life, because you lived a very, very interesting life. You were one of the few people I know to, certainly the only person I personally know that has interviewed Ted Bundy on his on death row.
Yes,
and I know most people know who that is.
Oh yeah,
he was an American serial killer who kidnapped, raped, and murdered numerous young women and girls through the 1970s, possibly earlier. After more than a decade of denials, he confessed to 30 homicides committed in 7 different states between 1974 and 1978. His true victim total is unknown. It could be much higher. He's regarded as a handsome, charismatic gentleman, traits that he exploited to win the trust of his victims in society. He would typically approach his victims in public places, feigning an injury or disability to earn their trust, or impersonating an authority figure before knocking them unconscious and taking them to secondary locations to rape and strangle them. He sometimes revisited his victims, grooming and performing sexual acts with the decomposing corpses until putrefaction and destruction by wild animals made that just impossible. He decapitated at least 12 different victims and kept some of the severed heads as mementos in his apartment.
And he also drove with them in his car.
He'd take them in the car. I mean, he is basically a definition, and I know we have friends that would call these serial killers demons, and I don't think they're wrong. He's basically a demon, and you spoke to him in a physical form.
And he was possessed. Okay. He did earlier. He played with the Ouija board. Not all people are going to be possessed playing with a Ouija board, okay? But he would be drunk, he would be high, and he would summon demons. He thought because he was so charismatic and so narcissistic that he could control them. But eventually, they controlled him. Okay. Also, one must realize that he was portrayed early on in his life. He was born in Vermont in a homeless shelter. Okay. And his mother is also his sister. He did not know that. They went from Vermont. They went from Vermont to Philadelphia. His grandparents adopted him. There was always stories about his grandfather being his father.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh dear.
You know. And then he was openly masturbating and all sorts of things in Philadelphia. I mean, he was just off the. They had taken him to a psychologist, psychiatrist, got him on medication and nothing. So Louise, his sister, who is also his mother, they decided to drive to the Pacific Northwest, to Seattle. And that's where he began to play with the Ouija board. His range on the IQ was 136. And so he was gifted. Okay, he was gifted. He was not gifted, he was good looking. Okay? But that is very correct that he used his narcissism, he used his manipulation. He went to college, and I asked him about that. And he said, I wanted a degree in psychology so I could learn how to manipulate even more. So he did. He was quite charming, and that is very correct. And so when it comes to the Ouija board, he went and killed small animals. He put the blood and everything on the Ouija board and everything like that. He summoned more demons and more demons and more demons. But let me tell you, my brothers,
like offerings,
sacrifices.
Yeah. On the Ouija board itself. And I do want to just point out that, we're not necessarily anti-Ouija board. I mean, in our minds, it is anything else. If you're afraid of that, then you should be afraid to put on a recorder and ask spirit to talk into it, because it's basically necromancy no matter how you cut that by. But it sounds like, he had a lot of intense energy and trauma going into these things. And, I started to use physical objects and the symbolic magic, even like the blood and that sort of thing.
And he also masturbated on the board.
Well, there's a whole load of energy,
big thing,
so to speak.
Right, and he also masturbated on the choir gowns at his church of women.
Oh wow!
His mother betrayed him by not telling him that. Oh, by the way, I'm your mother, but I'm your sister also. Okay. All the women he killed except one, who was a teenager, okay, that looked like his mother. They all looked like his mother, okay? Everyone betrayed him. Also, Ted Bundy. There was a connection with Ted Bundy and myself because when I grew up in Peoria, Illinois, out in the country, as they say, and there was a young girl. I was in grade school. She was in high school. And she, like most people in the 60s, 70s, they hitchhiked all over, right? And so,
that was a thing back then.
Yeah. So she hitchhiked to the Pacific Northwest. That's how she ran into Ted Bundy. She was decapitated. Her skin was peeled from her. And did many, 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 many more things to her. He carried her body from the Pacific Northwest and then drove to Texas, but killed other women at the same time. He buried her. This is strange about him also, and he even said this, that he tried to bury in a shallow grave very close to a cemetery. And you think, if a person has that much conscience, you know what I mean? That
yes.
He to be buried to a cemetery, well, that's kind of a good sign. But for him, it was just pure manipulation. That's all. Anyhow, this young girl was found. He, and like right before they put him to death, he started to sing like a canary. And he wanted to be out of the prison. So he said to the authorities and to his lawyer, I can take you to these places where I buried these women.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to get Yeah, he wanted to get out.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were correct, and others were and others he just made up, right?
Just so he could get out for a while and just like mess with everybody.
Amen. And so, so the authorities said, forget it. So he went back on death row. So the 90 minutes that I was with him, 5 feet from him, there were no guards. I mean, there were guards there, and I mean, there was no bars between us at all, none whatsoever. When I looked at him and he looked at me, which he hated me. He hated me. He even called me a faggot. He hated me.
Do you believe it was really him looking at you, or do you think he was possessed at that point? And
I think
possessed was it?
I think that he had been possessed for many years. I do. But when he looked at me, he began to sweat. His eyes were like walnut. You know what I mean? So like there was nothing behind them whatsoever. Nothing. Pure evil, hatred. And I remember many times he would say, Robert, I know who you are, and I know what you're trying to do. He goes, I don't like you. He goes, I like the women over there because I know what I can do to them. You know?
Yeah.
And some of these women, there were 3 women, they were dressed in different clothing to entice them, right? 2 of the women are no longer psychologists at all. They have started their own foundation in different parts of the United States, and they're working with women and young girls and boys who are being trafficked. They're being trafficked and such. Mm-hmm. And
what did he tell you, Robert, about the killings? I know we're going a little over time.
I'm sorry.
Like, no, it's okay.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I want to just expound a little bit on this idea of possession, because I believe you. We believe that he was possessed, and that people that do these sort of things, it is not human. It's not just the psychological damage. It may be that damage is an invitation to something else, to move in, to commit these things. I'm not letting him off the hook here, guys.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, I don't think it's him at all times. Being in his presence, I mean, what did that feel like? And
being able to peel somebody's skin off, I mean, right there is just...
Yeah, man.
And talking about that, it was matter of fact. He showed no emotion. His affect, his facial expression was flat. Nothing.
Uh-huh.
When he was talking about cutting some of these, and again, I'm not glorifying what he did, but these women's stories need to be told. Okay? But how he dissected them. He would cannibalize different parts of their bodies also. I don't know how graphic you want me to get.
Go for
it.
Anyhow, but I won't go into that then. But
you can.
No,
I was just saying,
okay.
Go for it. You can be as graphic as you want.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. When he said that he had a hard time getting an erection, he couldn't get an erection normally, right? But when he began to cut into these women, he started to get an erection. Okay? The more terrifying the woman looked and screamed and begged him to stop, the more excited he became. Okay? And even in this, I've never said this before, but even in the interview, when the female psychologists were talking to him, he began to play with himself. Okay? You know?
Yeah.
And one of the
connection between sex and violence there.
One of the female psychologists were dressed in different attire, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was very busty, as they say, right? He was wearing a real tight sweater. She is still a good friend of mine. And he looked over to her and said, you know, if I had a knife, I would cut that sweater off of you. And she goes, yeah? What would you do then? He said, I would cut your bra off, I would cut your nipples off, and I would eat them. Mm-hmm. Like Jeffrey Dahmer and other people who cannibalize their victims, they want to get that closeness to them. Okay? They want that DNA in their blood inside of them.
Dominance.
Yeah.
Right.
Power.
Mm-hmm. And so then, but he acted totally different, like with me. The female psychologist asked him different questions. I wanted the dark side of him. That's what I was interested in. Okay? I asked him who his mentor was. How did he learn how to dissect, dismember, peel skin? His mentor was Ed Gein.
Okay. Ed Gein.
Ed Gein. You know Ed Gein?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Gein.
Wow, gaffe on my part. Yeah, Ed Gein, of course.
Yes, that's who he idolized. That's who he idolized.
Oh.
God.
And so he went into detail about skinning women and about how he would say that his car broke down. And that's how he manipulated the women. And, you know, back then people were helping people all the time. You know what I mean? It was just common, you know?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Also, I must tell you that he assisted the police in capturing the Green River murderer. You know the Green River serial killer?
Yes, Green River. Yeah, what Chappelle Jam used to write about all the time. I know. I think it was like at least 3 of their songs from their 10 record. I'm Alive, Even Flow, and there's one other one. I was a big grunge fan in the 90s. We're about the Green River Killer.
Right. And so I asked Ted about that, and he said, "Yeah, I sent the police information of where they're going to find him and what he's going to do next." Of course he would know. He's a serial killer with women. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So he was the one who told the police where to look, what to do, and that's how they arrested the Green River serial killer. Okay. Also, I must tell you that Ted Bundy had a daughter. Her name's Rose Bundy. Okay? And she is older, of course, now. She lives a very private life. You know, she could cash in millions of dollars to write a book.
Of course, yes.
You know, to write a book. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just put up a little bit of Ed Gein's handiwork, of course, was the inspiration for Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Right. And that's He found, one time I called him Teddy, and he spit at me. He said, "No, don't call me Teddy. Women can call me Teddy. But you're the faggot. Call me Ted."
So full of himself.
No. But anyhow, so he was instrumental in getting the Green River murder arrested. But with Rose Bundy, she's married, but she lives a very private life. She's never done anything on TV. I think you can find her name if you Google it and see a picture of her. Okay.
I wouldn't blame her for that, though, because I'd want to stay under the radar as well and be very secluded and not be out in the world with all this.
Oh, yeah.
Or,
and also I wrote, 90 minutes was up. The air in the room when he was there, I felt it, but the other psychologists did not. The air was thick. It was, it was, to me, it was stinky. You know what I mean? It smelled, right? The other psychologists never noticed that. How did that?
Yeah.
And it was time. And so he gets up. He wants to shake our hand. But the guard said, no. And so he didn't. But right before he leaves, he said, yes, that I murdered all these women, and I've murdered more women than what you think. But he said, I have been raped in this prison. Yes. Anyhow, that he stated that he was raped in prison, and nobody cares about that. I ignored that completely. You know what I mean? I ignored that. So
sympathy. Well,
yeah.
We've touched on a lot of things today, and I apologize again for the late start and the switching of software, but I am so glad we could put this together. I think we could go deeper with this Ted Bundy thing, and there are other things I wanted to talk to you about.
Yes, a lot.
We have not been able to get to, and I think we're just going to have to have you back on if you're willing.
If you're
very much so, because there are other things that I can talk about, Mr. Bundy, and other things that I do also. So whenever you have availability, let me know. And okay, I appreciate that so much.
Absolutely.
My brothers and sisters, please love yourself. Okay, we can love other people, but we need to love ourselves. Also, we can forgive someone else, but sometimes we can't forgive ourselves. So please, my brothers and sisters, forgive yourself also, okay? Love, light, and peace to everyone. And thank you, Bigfoot and the Bunny. What a wonderful journey it was today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm very grateful for you.
We'll talk soon, my friend. Thank you.
Happy birthday again, Anne-Marie Young.
And we went over a little bit, and that was just so wonderful. It was great to talk to him, and touched on some things. Said it was no joke we were going to get into some dark topics, and also emotional ones. I'd like to thank all the listeners out there for being patient and all your chat. Ken Allen, Anne-Marie Young, and countless others out there.
Yes,
we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. We'll be back. We'll see you guys next Thursday on the Dark Horse Paranormal Podcast. We're going to be live with Ken Allen.
Yes,
and we're going to talk about demons. We're going to get into the gym. We're going to talk about some things that are going to blow your mind. Yeah. So we'll see you then. You guys have a great week. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you for hanging with us.
Take care. And there it is. Did you hear it, folks? It was very subtle. It's very quiet. And like I said, I was just going to chop this off and forget about it and just to tidy up the podcast. But I was like, there's something to that. So I amplified it a little bit, and it sounds like this. And a little more, and it sounds like this. And slowed down and amplified, it sounds like this. What I got real quick from that is you asked for it, you're under attack. So is that the ghost of Ted Bundy? I don't know, folks. It could be. As Robert mentioned, when he discusses Ted Bundy, things get a little crazy on the airwaves and the interwebs. So could be something playing the role. I don't know. It doesn't sound very nice, not a very inviting message, no matter how you cut that. But let us know again what you hear. If you hear something different or you heard something else in the broadcast, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook at the in the group Paranormal UK Radio Network fans, at our Facebook page, facebook.com/Bigfoot and the Bunny, or just email us at bigfootandthebunny@gmail.com. That's all we got for you. Have a great week. Thanks.